My amendment was adopted by unanimous consent, and yet with that clear support from the Senate floor, the leadership on the other side apparently goes to conference and just takes out those amendments in the dead of night. I find that really worrisome. I find it worrisome in terms of the process. I find it worrisome in terms of immigration reform and where we're apparently headed. Let me focus for just a minute on my proposal. When the bill was on the floor, my amendment, which was Senate Amendment 1375, was passed by unanimous consent. So literally no one in the entire body, Democrat or Republican, objected. Essentially everyone agreed to put this amendment on the bill. The amendment was to prohibit funding to the Department of Homeland Security if they implemented any changes in a final rule requiring employees to follow the rules of the federal Social Security no-match notices. This, like E-Verify, is an important piece of the puzzle. It's an important piece of the solution. In August of 2007, Department of Homeland Security introduced its no-match regulation. This clarified the responsibility of employers who receive notice that their employees' names and Social Security numbers don't match up with the records at Social Security. So under the rule, employers receiving these notices that did not take corrective action would be deemed to have constructive knowledge that they're employing unauthorized aliens. So in other words, the intent and the way the rule worked was very simple and straightforward. If records went into Department of Homeland Security, if a name and a Social Security number didn't match up according to Social Security records, then the government, the federal government, would notify the employer and would say, time out, you have a problem. You need to do something about it. It's important for enforcement. It's important for workplace enforcement. It's important to get our hands around the problem of illegal immigration. Because of the common sense behind that concept, my amendment was adopted on the Senate floor unanimously, unanimous consent. Unfortunately, Mr. President, I think it's clear this Congress, under the Democratic leadership, this administration, want to take a very different approach to immigration, and they're not serious about any of these enforcement measures. I really think that's a shame, Mr. President. To me, this harkens back to the major immigration reform debate we had in the summer of 2007. A big so-called comprehensive immigration reform bill came to the floor. It didn't have enough enforcement, in my opinion. It did have a huge amnesty program instead. And so by the end of the debate, the American people spoke loud and clear. They said, no, we want enforcement. We want to do everything we can on the enforcement side first. We don't want a big amnesty. And that so-called comprehensive bill was defeated by a wide margin. After that seminal event, so many on the Senate floor, including many who had backed that bill, Senator McCain among them, said, okay, we heard the American people. We heard you loud and clear. We need to start with effective enforcement. We need to start with common sense measures, like a certain amount of fencing, like E-Verify, like the Social Security no-match rule. And yet, when we put those common sense measures in this bill, what happens? In this Congress, led by Democratic leadership, under this administration, it's just stripped out of the conference committee report. Sure, it got big votes on the Senate floor. Sure, it has widespread House support. Sure, the Vitter amendment, in the case of my amendment, was adopted by unanimous consent. We don't care. We're going to strip it out. The message is loud and clear. The message is we don't care what the American people have said. We don't care what they said in the summer of 2007. We don't care what they say over and over and over again about these issues. President, we need to listen to the American people. We don't need to play games and say we're supporting provisions here and then just have them stripped out of conference reports. We need to be more straightforward. more honest in what we're truly about in attacking this problem. And unfortunately, this conference report is an example of exactly the opposite. This is of real concern as we go into that health care debate, because quite frankly, what does it matter what we adopt here on the Senate floor when the conference committee work is going to be handled perhaps just like this Homeland Security Conference Committee is? People can have little confidence based on our votes here on the Senate floor. The conference committee work can be diametrically opposed to it on significant issue after significant issue, just like it was here. We need to stop eroding public confidence in that way. We need to do what is, in fact, our first job here in the Congress, House and Senate, which is listen to the American people and, yes, represent the American people.